Hello all, how are we doing today? So good to see you all. I'm going to take my glasses off today for this. Um, we're going to do live coding straight away today. There's not going to be much of a kind of presentation or a history session today. We're going to get stuck into it, about 40 minutes of coding, going through the basics all the way up to some interesting concepts that I hope you will follow and get. Please comment if you don't. And I see some Fanta drinkers in the group today. I always stick with my Diet Coke. But let's get started. So looking at my session that we have today, do remind you that you go to, in fact, actually, let's just remember that. I'll just copy and paste this out. That's something we're going to go to in a minute. But if you go to digital.edu.je, you'll find yourself as the Thinking as a Coder website with the materials from previous sessions and materials for the session for today. So digital.edu.je, and that will take you to this page, as we've said here. I've added a new link here, which is the Trinket link here, and that's what we're going to be using to code with today. So when you press that Trinket, it will take you to a new website here, which is the Trinket website, which is the Python 3 rather than Python. So what we have been using in the past, and you can go directly to this website, and what I'd advise you to do is have a go as I'm doing this. So if you're able to have two windows up at the same time or flick between the windows as you work, I think you should have a go while you do it, and you'll start to see that you can code quite easily as well. For those of you that I've seen before, it's going to be a kind of refresher course for that with some slightly new information in there as well. But you can add the Python 3 to be using something that's a little bit more up to date than normal Python. So if you add the 3 or you leave the 3 out, it doesn't really matter for what we're going to be doing today, but we're going to be following along with that. And when you go to the Python website that's here, you will probably see something a little bit more zoomed out. I'm going to zoom in today so you can follow what I'm doing as I go along. I'll keep a note of where my head is here so I don't get any of the text behind it. So Python is really a universal language. It's probably one of the easiest ones that you can pick up. And it enables you to make web apps. It enables you to do data analytics. It's a very versatile programming language. So it's really why we choose it. It's also the one that is hardest to mess up with missing characters and things like that can exist with JavaScript and other more complex languages. So we've had a little look on the last session about variables, and we talked about algorithms and programming. And really, this is it. We're about to talk now about algorithms, programming. All we need to know is how to get started. So we've got two windows here. We've got our code here and our interpreter on the side. We remember what that was from the last session. The interpreter is going to tell me line by line if I get things wrong, rather than the compiler, which does things all at the same time. So let's have a go in straight away. And we've said this before that, I used to teach maths. Sorry for those of you that had a bad time with maths, but I obviously like it. But I'm going to try and avoid reminding you of maths as much as possible. So when I'm talking about variables, things that change, normally you would do var equals x, because we talk about x or y in maths, but I'm going to try and keep things to kind of normal words to try and help out to, say what it is. But you'll quite often see things like var, just meaning variable, and especially in other languages, that's how you state that you're going to do one. But in Python, we're just going to say number 1, okay, and that's it. I'm just saying number 1, space, equals 5, right? I'm just saying that. I've made a variable. Now in Trinket, the colors change. So you can just about see it there. I'm looking at my screen now. The equal sign has gone a kind of purpley color and the 5 is a blue color. And that helps you to know that you're doing things correctly. If I then say number 2 equals 8, then I've done exactly the same thing. I have two variables. Now I could have said, x equals 5, y equals 8. That's why in maths we just use random letters. Or I could have said a, b. In fact, you'll come to see why I might be able to do a and b later like that, because it's going to save me time later on. But let's keep with the stuff that makes sense. So I've declared two variables. I've stated what they are. And then I'm going to do a bit of maths. I'm going to say the sum. And I do something called camel case. And it is just like a camel's back with things that go up and down. It means that computers don't like spaces in the middle of variables and commands. So we don't use spaces, but then that can be quite difficult. Does this now say the sum or something like that? We use the capitals to separate the words out to make it a little bit easier to read when you're coding. So I've got the sum equals number 1 plus number 2. Now, at the moment, I could press play on my code here, and it's going to do that, but nothing's going to happen. It's saying connecting to server, and there's nothing in this window here, but the computer has done that job. Sometimes we want to check it's done that job. Do we trust that the computer has done this job? And so we come in, press enter, print anything else. Just apologies if you can hear something before. Someone's just walked through in my recording studio making some noise, but I'm sure they'll be fine in just a second. So print, and let's just do this again. Let's have a little look here. There we go. So I had the equal sign. There we go. Just messing me around there. I'm going to zoom back in and we're ready to go. So again, we don't need the equal sign for doing that. And if I say the variable, that's what I print. So apologies for that. I'm just going to start again with this because I want to rewrite it better. Because what I have here is number 1 and number 2. And what I don't want to do is waste my time typing. So what I really want to do is say A equals 5, then B equals 8. And then I'm going to replace these. It's highlighting saying these don't exist anymore, which is right, because I've got A plus B. And then when I print the sum, I should get exactly the same thing. Just to prove it's working, I'm going to change the 9, press play. And there we go, we got 14. So again, the words are sometimes too much. Maybe I just wanted to say C, save myself some issues, and press play when I'm going there. So yeah, 14, fine there. What happens if it's times? Well, times is a star in Python. Going to press play. So I've got my 45, and we can see that all turning up and appearing. So, you know, that maths part of me, that old maths teacher, just uses letters to save myself time. And that's why we have X and Y. And that's the only reason why mathematicians use those kind of values to do these things that we're talking about. But we can now do much harder calculations at the click of a button. And that's why I believe now going forward that knowing your times tables and maths, things like that, isn't as important as it used to be. So just a little reminder, I think I confused things with the equal sign as someone walked through my office there, was just to say A equals 2, B equals 3, then you can do C equals A and whatever. Let's this time do minus B. You don't need the space either. I just use spaces to make things look good. And then just do print C without the equal sign, and hopefully that will work when you come through. And there we got the -1. So there we go. That's just variables and simple mathematics. And we're going to get irritated with Americans in a minute because they're going to force me to say the word math rather than maths, because that's how Python works. So let's get to more complex answers that we had before. So we've got our, as we've said here, we've got our variables now, simple mathematics. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to say num, N-U-M, equals 8. I'm just stating a number. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use some conditions, and just sometimes referred to if-elses. So now we're going to say if num is greater than 5, and then we do need these 2 dots, the colons there, to do this. And then I'm going to press enter. And the next part is also very important, because when I press enter, you will notice that it doesn't quite go underneath. It indents. It's gone a little chunk in. So I can press delete when I come in here, and I can press enter, and it's gone underneath. That's very important. That's about the only thing in Python that really messes up. If you've messed up in Python, it's usually because your indentations are not correct. So it's worth pressing them. We can use the tab button If I undo that, I can bring it back again using the tab button. So if number is greater than 5, and then I need to say what happens. And I can say print, and this is where we use our brackets and our speech marks, and I can say positive number. Okay, now really, if it's a positive number, I'm just going to say that this will work doing this because it's a positive number. You're right, it is. But really, I should say if it's greater than 0, it's a positive number, which again, it is. So we're doing quite well there. However, if I do -8 and press play, nothing happens, right? Because I've not told the computer what to do. All I've said is, if the number's greater than 0, do this. I've not told it what to do if that's not the case. So this is, again, is where you need to know your indents. If I press enter and it drops to the next line, that's if I want to follow on. After I've printed positive number, is there something else you want to do? No, I don't. I just want you to press positive number. So I am going to do the backspace to do else, and I'm going to say else, and then we put in the dot, the two colons there, and then I say print negative number. Here we go. I'll use it the same as before. If I didn't use a capital before, I won't use one here. And when I press play now, it says negative number. So if I change this to a 9, it will say positive number. And if I change it to 999, it'll still say positive number. But if I change it to a -999, we should get the negative number. Excellent. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, I know it's going to take 20 seconds for me to ask this question and you be able to type it. So I'll try and fill while I'm doing this. There is something else. There is something that would make this not work at the moment, because I've got, if it's greater than 0, it's a positive number, else it's a negative number. Can I type one specific number, and there is only one number that this answer is, can I type one number that will bring up a wrong answer? There's one number I've not considered when I've done this. If the number is greater than 0, say positive, otherwise it's negative. There is one number, and I'll keep an eye on this chat here on the side to see if anyone can get the right answer to this. Is there a number here that will not bring me the right answer? Okay, so again, I'm just trying to stall. I'm going to kind of wave at the camera so I know 20 seconds later when I see that it's about time, and I've given you enough time to work it. Excellent, got my first right answer there in the chat. Well done. Okay, just going to hold on in case maybe a few other people are about to type in there. So we have our first right answer. If I type in the answer 0 and press play, so well done that Daffy man there, it's going to say it's a negative number, and 0 is not a negative number. Okay. Unfortunately, someone there, Catty Bell, said it doesn't work. Do make sure when you're in Trinket that you do the Python /Python. If you go to just Trinket like that and go into there, it won't bring you to the Python zone. So you do want the Python when it's in there as well. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it, because Trinket's really good. It does web development, HTML. It does loads of other really cool looking items, really cool little bits of code. So you have to say that it's definitely Python. And you can get to that by going to the Thinking as a Coder and clicking that link, and it will take you there straight away. So hopefully that's the solution for you going forward for that. It's a Catty Bell. So yes, let's go back to this. So we had the 0. And so how do we deal with that? Well, we can have more than 2 statements in if-else's. What we end up doing is saying, right, okay, I want to say you are 0 here. Okay, so I do want that one saying if you're greater than 0, whatever. But what I want is another statement in here, which is else if, which is like if you want to keep going. And then I print it in here. So what I also do is put the statement in here. If the number is greater than 0, say positive, else if the number is less than 0, we then type in print negative number. So you can have more than two options when we're doing if and else's. And this is probably the most important bit. I'm just going to scroll up now because I'm starting to lose that page. There we go. That's the really important part. Now, you can keep going with as many else ifs as you like. I can have another one in here. I can have another one in here. And we can keep going with that, as many as we like, as long as we end with that kind of else as well. So the last statement is that else. That's good practice to do that. So in this case, I only want those three options. So it's an if, and what we're doing is continuing the if, saying if it's greater than 0, do positive. If it's less than 0, do negative. Else, that weird one where it's neither greater than 0 or less than 0, it's going to give me that answer. So let's press play. You are 0. Let's test it with the answer 5. Should give me positive. Should give me -7 is negative. There we go. All right. So that is a really variables, like the number equals -7 or the num equals -7 is important. And if, else, and else ifs, those three options there are really, really important to kind of get your head around for those. So hopefully going forward when we're doing some code to do with that, it won't be as confusing when you do it. So those are the three real options that we have there. I'll just, you can pause, you can make sure you got all the typing correct. If it isn't working, make sure that when you pressed enter, it did the indent there. That's really important. Also make sure that your if, your else if, and your else do not have an indent. This wouldn't be good, for example. And just make sure that's so with Python, it's the indents that cause the problems. So we've got that. That's all good. And we are now understanding, or the thing that we're remembering is this. To be pleased to know there's no quiz today. We're just doing full-on coding with this one today. So those are the three statements that are really, really useful. If, else if, and else. Okay, so that's really important to understand. So the next thing is random numbers. And we use random numbers all the time because it's really important that we can produce random numbers. Because if you want to play a game or you want to do anything like that, you really want to be able to do new games each time that are slightly different. Okay, so I'm going to show you some stuff here, and there's going to be something a little bit interesting, I hope, or a little bit confusing, but I'm hoping to make it not confusing. When I started out doing Python, this was something that I wish somebody explained to me from the very beginning. So I am going to explain it to you from the very beginning. We could code how to produce a random number, but it's actually very, very difficult to do on a computer. Really, really difficult to do. In fact, computers can't generate their own random numbers. It's a weird fact, and the internet is actually kept safe with lava lamps. I will talk all about that at a later stage, because someone has a webcam on some lava lamps, and it helps a computer to create random numbers. Story for another time. So instead of trying to work out how to code a random number, which would take a long time and be quite difficult, we can import a library called random, and that has all the code in it. Okay, so if I was to go to Google and say, show me Python random library, because they're called libraries, we could go in and we could probably find the Python random module, and we could go in and we can see all the things that's in it, and we can try and see the code. It's really quite complex. So we're not going to go in and look at that code. We're just going to understand that the very simple thing at the beginning there of saying import random is getting somebody else's work that you're now able to reference and you're able to use, which is really good for us, and it's going to speed things up. So before I do this, and I'll show you what happens if you forget to import random, I wouldn't be able to do, and I'm going to call this variable rando for random number. Rando equals random, and this is the only weird bit, and I'll show you how we can get around it if we want to, dot random with just two brackets after it. And that I'll explain that in more detail. And then when I press enter, I'm going to do print, and I'm just going to put rando in the middle. And then I'm going to press play, and then I'm going to explain this. Here we go. There's a random number. If I keep pressing play, I've got loads of random numbers here. I'll explain what it's doing and everything like that. As I go through it, loads of random numbers just clicking away. So there's a couple of things to point out here. The first is rando is just a random number I get, a random variable name. I chose whatever I want. I could have just said R, and then that would make my life easier here because I'm just doing R for random number. Okay, so yeah, that's easier. If you want to do that, you can do that. Or you can use things that are more easier to remember, like the kind of rando stuff. So what I'm then having a look at is, why have I got it twice? Why have I got random dot random? And we actually saw that a while ago, and I probably should have left that on. So if I again Google show me random number library here and have a look at it, W3 schools, these names here are all of the things that I can call in random. They're all like kind of random things. In a moment, all things to do with random, I'm going to call random int like that. So all we're saying here is, in the random library that I have called, in this random library, there is a bunch of commands that I can call, and it just so happens, which makes it sound confusing, that one of the things I can call in the random library is called random. Okay, I've now said random way too many times, but that's why it seems weird. We're going to use different objects in a moment, but that's what it does. And the random function in the random library produces a number between 0 and 1, but not including 1. So it just gives you loads of decimals here, which isn't amazingly helpful. Now, we can do clever things, and we can time stuff by 10. So I could even just write, maybe let's see what happens if I write 10 in here, for example. Nope, doesn't like it. We're playing around. In fact, what I should have done is I can do maybe 1, 10. Does that happen? No, it doesn't like it. We actually put the times out here, times by 10. And that will help me out a little bit to produce a number that's greater than 0 if I want to get a random number, but I've still got too many decimals. In fact, and we're going to quickly go through this, and it's going to be for another time, I would in fact need to import another library called math, and I would have to use math.ceiling, which is something that rounds numbers up, and then I have some random numbers in here, a little bit better. Okay, but I'm not going to talk about that yet, because there are quicker and easier ways of doing things. I don't need to import another library. I'm going to stick with random, and I'm going to bring in something called randint. And when I press play, it's not going to like it, because I need to say what numbers I need to go between. And this is way easier than what you just saw me build. Random.randomint 1 to 10. Maybe I want to do 10 to 20. And that will do those batch of numbers. So randint, and int stands for integer, which just means whole number, is one of the most useful things that you can do here. So we've got that rand and randint. So there's a lot in today. Today is one of those sessions where I think, you should spend some time and go back if you're not able to do it as I'm kind of doing it along, or I'm going a little bit too fast. Go back, press pause, do it, have another go. So the kind of test for today isn't a quiz, is to go back and have another go at what I'm about to show you today. Because I'm going to try and, in the time remaining here, try and get us through a simple game, a random number guessing game. And what we've done there are what I would consider to be the easiest or the simple parts of what we've done. So let's try and make this into a game. And I'm going to add a couple of extra commands that will help us do this. And I'm going to delete what I have so far, but I'm going to keep the import random here. I think it's going to be useful to use. So I'm going to keep an eye on my face. In fact, what I might do is just get rid of my face in a second so we can see the code come down. So I'm going to import random. Now, you don't need to put a space in between. You can just start writing code, but I like to see which libraries that I brought in before I go. Then I'm going to say, I probably should have kept it up, but it's a good habit to do it, that number. In fact, I'm going to call it num instead of number. I could call it n to save typing, but I'm just going to do num equals random dot randint, that lovely one that we had, and I'm going to do a guessing game between 1 and 10. So again, I could press play, but nothing's going to happen now because I've not pressed print or anything like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to make this game a little bit more personable. I want to lure you into the game. And how do I do that? I start to ask you questions. So I'm going to call this one name, and I'm going to do equals. So this is the name, and we're going to use a new command, which is input. Okay, and it's going to force me to type something in. It's going to ask me in the corner here or the side to enter something. So I'm going to do input. What am I going to input? Now I could press play, and it's actually requiring me to input, and I could type in and press enter. But that wasn't obvious when I pressed play that I had to do something. So I need to kind of prompt you to say something. So inside here, I'm going to use the speech marks, and I'm going to say, hello, what is your name? Okay, question mark maybe. And when I press, or hello would even help. And when I press stop and play again, that's more obvious that I want to type in my name here. And if I press Rory and press enter, that will now be the variable name. But I haven't done anything with it, okay? So what I like to do is I like to confirm that we've done something. So I'm going to scroll up a bit here. So this time I'm just going to say print. And we're going to do something a little bit more different here. We're going to do the print with the brackets and do the speech marks here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, and then space. Now, think about what I'm doing here. I'm going to do a comma and a space. I'm going to leave the space out to begin with and show you why this won't work. Then I'm going to do plus name. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to press play. It's going to bring me back to type my name in. I'm going to press Rory, press enter. And what it's trying to do is find what I'm trying to do here, okay? So it's trying to give me the okay and print the name. That's what it's trying to do. And the reason why I'm having a struggle with that is because as I'm just scrolling through here to reduce down, it doesn't like when you do letters and numbers together and variables. It doesn't kind of quite like that. So I'm just going to show you by doing this again, and I'm going to do the play. What's your name? Rory. And I'm going to show you that every time we do that, press enter, we got the okay, Rory. So the space is something it was quite liking. Okay. I pressed play before, just going to give it again. Press play. And press enter. There we go, got the okay, Rory. So just give it time to play around. I do like the spaces to show me what I'm doing. Now, I could also do another and or another plus, and I could then do like a exclamation mark at the end there and then do that. But you can see here it says okay, comma, Rory, but there's no space in there. So that's why I wanted to put the space in. I was talking about that just before. So when I press play, I can come in and I can have it, when I press enter, start to talk to me. So I'm getting there. Okay, I haven't got to my guessing game yet, but the computer's now talking to me. I might want to just carry on with the game because it's actually talking to me. So the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to separate this out by a line because I'm going to do this as part of the game. And I'm going to do if, which we've learnt, num. Well, in fact, actually, before I do this, I'm going to ask it to do a guess. Okay, so I'm going to do guess equals. And what I want to do, and this is going to be important, I will show you two things here. I could do input, right? And what I could do is leave it as that. And when I press play, it's going to get annoying having to write my name out loads of times, but I'm just going to call myself R now to save some time. Okay, R. And then I've got this part here. But actually, I want the person to type in a number. So I'm going to say that up here. Okay, Rory, type in... sorry, I'm going to think another way. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What do you think it is? With a question mark. So that's a big long sentence there. And now when I press the stop and play again, I'm just going to click into here and press my R, enter. Okay, Rory, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What do you think it is? And if I type in a number here, 5, and press enter, I'm going to have a problem. And this is a huge, huge issue because the number 5 that I have typed in, it is considering as text or as a word. We call it a string. It's not considering it a number, okay? Because if I typed in 5 and it was correct, the random number here, and what I'll do in here, just to prove this case, so I'm going to go in, I'm going to get it to guess, and I'll show you the fix for this in a moment. And I'm going to say if guess equals number, so as if you get it right, then the colon that we need, press enter, and it will indent a little bit, print with the speech marks because it's text, you are right, well done. Now, I'm going to take all the guessing out of this, and I'm going to put a cheat in here, and I'm going to do print. We can get rid of this in a moment, so you can just follow this bit. You don't have to do it unless you want to. I'm going to print num, so it's going to tell me what it is beforehand. So I'm going to press this. Okay, sorry, if number, yeah, print there. That's fine, yeah. So what we've got there is if the guess equals. So another thing I forgot to do here, which is a rookie error, is if you are saying that a variable, this is why we like interpreters, because they tell you exactly which line you got this wrong with. I think there we go, just removing it up there as well, because my face was in the way again. So if we have the guess equals, that's because you're telling it you want it to be called something. If you want to compare, you have to use 2 equals. If you want to say, is the guess number the same as, you're not renaming it. What it was struggling with there is it was saying your guess is now called number. You were replacing, which isn't correct. We wanted to compare, which is a double equal sign. And now when I press play, it's told me that the number's 2. That's the print there because I told it to tell me straight away. But if I type in my name, I'm guessing a number. I know the answer because I did a little cheat code in here for it. If I type in 2 and press enter, it is not giving me the right answer. And you say, but you've told me, I asked you to cheat. There you've written 2. I've typed it in and it's not saying you are right, well done. And it should have done because I gave some cheats here for you. So what we're going to do is actually say the input up here is actually a number that you're typing in. So we actually need to call it, you remember when we said rand int for integer, give me a number? I'm going to say that this input value has to be a number. So I'm putting a bracket around the input. So that's important and probably the hardest thing of today, if I'm being honest. What that is doing is converting the input into a number rather than text. Because what it's saying is, I was guessing the number 2, but you typed in the word number 2, is kind of what it's saying. It's not treating that as an actual number. So that's really important. So if I press play again now and do my names are, and there it has, it said, what do you think it is? And I type in 7 now, I'm right. That simple int was so important in this situation. So, it was a bit strange, but that's what we do. What I'm going to do now is, if the number's correct, I'm going to leave it at well done. Then I'm just going to do else. And we're just going to say, what we're going to do if it's else, we're going to say, we need that colon again in there. We're going to do guess or print. Guess again. And remember, we need our speech marks for that. So I should have put them in at the very beginning. And then at the end there. Oh, there we are. And the problem I've got with this one is, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to deliberately get this wrong this time. So I'm not going to type in 10. I'm going to put in 5. It says guess again, but there's nowhere to type. Okay. So what I needed to do under here was then do exactly the same again, which was a new version of this. Overwrite. Do the guess, but equal it again. So what's the name? I know the answer's 1, so I'm not going to do it. What number am I thinking of? 2. Guess again. 4. Not right. Okay. But I needed this to loop around. So it did it. It asked me once, but I need it to keep going around and around and around. And there is a way of doing this kind of infinite loop, which is where we're going to kind of end today's session with this last bit. And it's not, and there's a secret one, it's not an if and an else, which kind of makes sense. We are going to then say, and we're going to stick it in after the guess here, we're going to say while true. Okay, so the only problem with this is if I press enter here, it's saying I would need to tab in. So what I needed to do was tab these in one extra time. So that's, again, like I said, the hardest place that you can go wrong with Python. I could have left that space in there if I wanted to. I was just tidying up and my head's getting in the way. So let's just scroll up again for that. There we go. So I have these items, but what I'm saying is it's not going to loop around over and over and over again until we add that part. In fact, I'm going to just move my screen to there. So I'm getting rid of myself. And let's have a little go with this one now. So what's your name? R. Press enter. What number am I thinking of? I'm going to avoid 10. Guess again. 7. There we go. Get 10 right. Now, there we go. We've got an infinite loop that basically said, because I'm right, I keep going round and round. And because I've typed the number in, it's saying that I'm right every single time. So what I need to do after I did the guess was basically say that I want to break the system. And what that means is quit. So I can say break the system. So let's go play. And it stops that infinite loop going around, because basically I was saying your number's right, your number's right, your number's right. You kept going looping around and around and around and around. So press R. What the numbers? Well, let's guess wrong first with 7. Then I can see that it's 8 because I've still got my cheat code in, and it's right. Well done. And it stops. So I needed that break. Otherwise, you would get an infinite loop going around and around and around. So we've covered a lot today, but the main talking points that we have here is that we've got import to import other libraries, complicated things that we don't want to have to program ourselves. And there's lots of different ones. And over the course of the weeks, we'll show you some interesting ones. We've got the idea to input values to keep us hooked in when we're going. And we've got the concept here of printing and interchanging those variables in there, which is also good. Then we've got integers. So if we are guessing numbers, we need to make sure we're calling them numbers. Okay, so it's very important that data types are being used correctly. And then we have this while true. So we can keep looping, and that was the extra thing. We can do these if else's, and we can keep going around and around and around. But sometimes you might get an infinite loop, so we need the break. And that's pretty much the main learning points of the day. One of the things we'll test is I'll take out that cheat line now, which is telling me the answer each time, so that when I press play, it's actually asking me to play the game properly. Press Rory, how many guesses? So I'm going to play this for real now because I can't see anything behind the scenes now. So 5, guess again, 3, 7, how good am I guessing? 1, oh, I'm just going to go through now, aren't I? 4, oh, this is bad guessing. 6, 8, it wasn't 9, oh my God, was it 10? There we go. The very last. So what were the chances of me there getting every other answer bar the right one? There we go. 1 out of 10, some would say, the maths people in the background there. Excellent. Now, what I'm going to say to us is we can get better and better at these games. So the homework for today is not a quiz. The homework is having a go at this and trying to get that code that you can see on the screen working if you haven't already. And what we're going to have a look at as we progress through this is you could, and this is some code I've prepared earlier, and I'll zoom out a little bit, and you can just see a lot of it is just some text. I'm going to zoom back in again. And I've just added some extra if-elses and prints and extra logic. And all I've done in this particular game is, hello, what is your name? Rory. I'm guessing of a number between 1 and 10. What is it? I'm going to say 5. But this time, this game is helping me out. It's saying my guess is too low. So now I can say, well, okay, if it's too low, it must be maybe 8. Your guess is too high. 6. There we go. Much easier to play that game. It's more of a game than just a pure random. Before, it was just, can you guess the number without any help? Now, I could maybe record how many guesses it's taken. Say, 3 is the world record for this game. Can somebody else get it in shorter times? Maybe I'm going to add this out now between 1 and 100. But then I'd have to make sure I add that to 100. And I can press play. And I can start to press my new game and get much harder, way too high, 25, and start to press this and see if we can zoom in to the number. Actually, quite a low number. There we go. 8, 6, 7. There we go. So how many guesses does it need for you to get to 100? So try and play around. I will talk to us about how we get something like this and use some extra. I've got some code that's in here to have a go at. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll copy this code and I will paste this into the Thinking as a Coder page here. I'll put it in the I'll make an extra little column there. In fact, what I might do is do this live to show you how easy it is. I love Google Sites, which is what I use to make this page here. So this is exactly what it is behind the scenes. Let me go to another page. Did I have code on this page? I thought I did have some Python. Yeah, I did have a page, which is called Python at the top there. So I don't need to add anything extra. I'm just going to go to my Python page and I will type in a bit of text into here. There's the code. What I might do, yeah, it's got the breaks. It looks like it's got everything, and I might tidy it up in a minute. I'm going to press publish that code out. So right now, if you're watching live, you should be able to refresh that page, go to Python. Let's see if it copies well. Maybe you have to do it one more time. Sometimes pressing the refresh button helps. There we go. Don't forget your comments. I've put them in. Let's see if copying and pasting all of that and putting it in here, delete and paste. It's got some extra lines, but that should still be okay. Yeah, it works. So if you're watching along live, you can go. So someone just asked, how do you make a website? If you've got a Google account and you've got a Google Gmail, you should be able to just go to sites.google.com and play around with some free sites. Have a go with that. Maybe I'll do a different session on that another day. But that's something really interesting. So that code will work in Python. Why don't you copy and paste it now and have a go? So I'm over time. So I just got the music there. I just want to say actually goodbye before I log on to that page. So do have a go at that. That's the homework today. Play around with the code, play around with that game, and have some fun. So good to see you, and we'll see you next week again. Have fun with that code. Bye-bye.